My stepmother favored her own child, treated me like an outsider, and when my father died, she thought she could take my inheritance. But I wasn't as weak as she believed. The day my father died, my entire world shifted. The house that had once been filled with his laughter felt hollow, like a shell stripped of its warmth. People often say grief makes families come together. For me, it tore mine apart. My stepmother, Kavita, didn't shed a single tear. She moved around the house with a strange kind of calm, as though she'd been preparing for this moment. Her daughter, Ria, wore the same expression. Cold, calculating. I stood in the corner of the living room, watching them whisper to each other, and for the first time, I realized just how alone I was. Growing up, I always knew Kavita favored Ria. My father remarried when I was 10, and from the start, Kavita treated me like a burden. She doted on her own child, giving her the best clothes, the best toys, the best of everything. I was tolerated, nothing more. My father, bless him, tried to make up for it. He made sure I never felt less loved. But with him gone, the mask of civility between us was gone too. The rituals and condolences passed in a blur. Relatives came and went, murmuring soft words I barely heard. But amid the fog of grief, I noticed something else. Kavita was unusually interested in my father's lawyer. One evening, after everyone left, I overheard her speaking to him in hushed tones in the study. I crept closer, heart pounding. "Are you certain?" Kavita whispered. "Yes, but the will hasn't been read yet." "You must be patient," the lawyer replied. My breath caught. The will. I stepped back before they could see me, my mind racing. What was she planning? The next morning, Kavita summoned me to the dining table. She sat there with Ria at her side, both of them sipping tea like royalty. "Listen, dear," she began, her tone falsely sweet. "Now that your father is gone, things will change. You're young, and you don't understand the responsibilities of managing property and wealth. It's only natural that I take control, for the good of the family." My jaw tightened. "What about me?" Kavita's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, you'll be cared for. But your father loved Ria too, and she deserves her share. More than you realize." Ria smirked at me, and in that moment, I knew. They weren't grieving, they were plotting. And I vowed then and there, I would not let them take what was rightfully mine. My father's legacy, his love, his trust, it wouldn't be stolen by a woman who never truly cared for him. This was the beginning of a battle I never asked for, but one I had no choice but to fight. If you discovered your stepmother was secretly plotting after your father's death, would you confront her immediately or stay silent and gather proof? The day of the will reading arrived faster than I expected. The lawyer, Mr. Sharma, came to the house carrying a heavy briefcase and an even heavier silence. His eyes darted between me, Kavita, and Ria as if he already knew the storm that was about to unfold. We gathered in the drawing room, the curtains were drawn, and the air felt thick, suffocating. Kavita sat with perfect posture, her hands folded neatly in her lap, Ria leaning smugly against her shoulder. I sat across from them, my palms damp, heart pounding. Mr. Sharma cleared his throat. "As you know, your father left specific instructions regarding his estate. I will now read his will." The room grew so quiet that I could hear my own breathing. "To my beloved daughter," he began, pausing for effect. For a moment, Kavita's face lit up, but then Mr. Sharma continued. "I leave the family home, the business shares, and the majority of my assets. It was always my wish that she carry forward the legacy I built." My chest tightened. He meant me. I looked up to see Kavita's face blanch, her smile cracking like shattered glass. Ria's smirk faltered into a scowl. Mr. Sharma went on. "To my wife, Kavita, I leave the smaller property in Pune, along with an annual allowance to ensure she is cared for. And to her daughter, Ria, I leave a fixed trust fund, modest but secure." Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. I felt a rush of emotions. Relief, love, sorrow. My father had protected me, even in death. He had seen through the favoritism, the manipulation, and made sure I would never be left with nothing. But when I looked up again, Kavita's expression terrified me. Her lips were curled into something between a smile and a sneer. "How convenient," she said softly, her voice dripping with venom. "Everything to you, nothing to us." Ria slammed her hands on the table. "This isn't fair. Papa loved me too. He promised me. He promised. Promises don't matter," I said quietly, though my voice shook. "This is what he wanted. It's his decision, not ours." Kavita's eyes locked on mine, cold and sharp as a blade. "Do you really think this is over?" "A piece of paper doesn't decide who wins, my dear. You may have the will, but I have something much stronger." A chill ran down my spine. I didn't know what she meant, but I knew one thing. She wasn't going to accept defeat. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just a family feud. It was war. If your father left you everything in his will, but your stepmother refused to accept it, would you fight her head on or try to make peace? That night, I couldn't sleep. The words from the will still echoed in my head, but louder than that were Kavita's chilling ones. "You may have the will, but I have something much stronger." What did she mean? The house, once mine in name, suddenly felt unsafe. Shadows seemed darker, silence heavier. Every creak of the floorboards made me wonder if someone was watching me. By morning, the battle lines were drawn. Kavita and Ria avoided me at breakfast, whispering behind closed doors. Their glances were sharp, filled with loathing. I pretended not to notice, but inside, I was on edge. Later that day, I found the first warning. On my bedroom desk lay a folded note written in rushed handwriting. "This house doesn't belong to you. Leave or you'll regret it." My hands shook as I read it. Who had left it? Kavita? Ria? Both? I stormed into the living room where they sat watching television, laughing as if nothing had happened. "Did you put this in my room?" I demanded, holding the note up. Ria rolled her eyes. "Why would we waste time writing silly threats?" Kavita gave a cold smile. "Paranoia doesn't suit you, dear. Maybe you're not ready to handle the responsibility your father left you." Their calmness scared me more than an admission would have. That evening, Mr. Sharma called me. "Be careful," he warned. "Your stepmother called my office today, demanding we challenge the will in court. She claims your father was manipulated into writing it." My heart sank. That's ridiculous. He loved me. He wanted me to inherit everything. "I believe you," Mr. Sharma said, "but the courts won't take sides so easily." She'll try to prove you don't deserve it. After hanging up, I sat on my bed, staring at the note again. I realized Kavita wasn't bluffing. She was willing to fight with lies, intimidation, anything she could use. That night, as I walked past Ria's room, I heard her whispering on the phone. Don't worry, Mom. She won't last long. We'll find a way to ruin me. I returned to my room with my chest tight. This wasn't just about property. It was about power. And if I didn't stand strong, they would strip me of everything. My father's legacy, my home, even my dignity. I looked into the mirror and whispered to myself, you survived losing your father. You can survive this. But deep down, I knew the threats had only just begun. If you received anonymous threats from inside your own home, would you leave for safety or stay to protect your inheritance? It started slowly. Whispers I caught in the neighborhood, strange looks from relatives, and subtle shifts in the way people spoke to me. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but soon the truth became clear. Kavita and Ria had begun spreading lies about me. At the market, one of my father's old friends pulled me aside. Beta, he said hesitantly, is it true you tricked your father into signing everything over to you? I froze. What? No, that's absurd, he sighed. Kavita says he was weak, not in his right mind. She claims you pressured him. My stomach turned. That's what she meant by being stronger than the will. She was using rumors, poisoning the community against me. By the time I returned home, 2 more relatives had called, questioning me about the same story. I felt my father's memory being torn apart, his love for me twisted into something ugly. That evening, I stormed into the living room where Kavita and Ria sat sipping tea. Why are you lying about me? I demanded. Kavita didn't even flinch. I only told the truth. People deserve to know how greedy you've become. Ria smirked. Everyone's already starting to believe it. You'll look like a fraud when we take you to court. My hands clenched at my sides. My father left me everything because he trusted me, not you. And no matter how many lies you spread, the truth will stand. But inside, doubt gnawed at me. What if people's opinions mattered in court? What if her lies planted enough seeds of suspicion to destroy my case? That night, I pulled out my father's letters, old notes he had written to me over the years. In them, he spoke of his pride, his love, his desire for me to continue his legacy. Tears blurred my eyes as I read them. These letters were my only shield against the venom Kavita spewed. The next day, things got worse. At a family gathering, one of my cousins whispered loudly enough for me to hear, she doesn't deserve it. She's not even Kavita's real daughter. Why should she get everything? Ria smirked from across the room, clearly proud of her work. For the first time, I felt truly cornered. They weren't just attacking my inheritance. They were attacking my character, my worth. But as I lay in bed that night, anger began to harden into resolve. If they wanted a war of lies, I would fight back with truth. I wouldn't just defend my father's will. I would defend his honor. If your family spread lies about you to take your inheritance, would you fight back publicly or gather quiet proof to destroy them later? The more Kavita and Ria schemed, the more determined I became to expose them. Their lies were spreading fast, but I knew the truth had to be hidden somewhere, and I was going to find it. One evening, while they were out visiting relatives, I crept into Kavita's study. It was the room she guarded most, always locking it when she left. But that day, in her rush, she had left the key on the dining table. My heart raced as I opened the drawers, searching through neatly stacked files and folders, bills, property documents, old letters, and then at the very bottom, a brown envelope marked private. Inside, I found what I was looking for, letters exchanged between Kavita and my father during their marriage. At first they seemed ordinary, but as I read deeper, one detail stood out. In one letter, dated just weeks before his death, my father wrote, Kavita, I know you care for your daughter, but my estate must go to my blood. I cannot allow my legacy to be lost. Please understand, this is my final decision. My hands trembled. This was undeniable proof that he had made the will on his own, out of love and responsibility, not because I forced him, as Kavita claimed. I quickly tucked the letter into my bag, knowing it could save me in court. But just as I turned to leave, I noticed something else. A second envelope, hidden under the first. Curiosity overcame me, and I opened it. Inside were receipts, large transfers of money from my father's account to Kavita's personal one. The dates were alarming. Some of these transfers were made just days before his health worsened. A terrible realization dawned on me. Had she taken advantage of him when he was weak? Maybe even caused his decline? I shoved the papers back, too shaken to think clearly. But one thing was certain. Kavita wasn't just greedy. She was dangerous. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every moment from the past year. His sudden fatigue, his unexplained fainting spells, how Kavita always insisted on managing his medicines. The next morning, I confronted her indirectly. Over breakfast, I asked, did Papa ever question all the money you spent recently? Her spoon froze midair, her eyes flicking to Ria before she forced a laugh. What money? You must be mistaken. But I saw the panic in her face, and in that moment, I knew I had the upper hand. The question was, when should I use it? If you discovered hidden letters and proof that your stepmother might have manipulated your father, would you confront her immediately or save it as a weapon for court? After discovering those letters and receipts, I felt a strange mix of fear and power. For once, I wasn't just defending myself. I had something that could destroy Kavita. But I also knew she wouldn't sit quietly, and I was right. 2 days later, a knock came at the door. A police officer stood outside. We received a complaint, he said. You're accused of forging your father's will. My blood ran cold. What? That's a lie. But behind the officer, I saw them, Kavita and Ria standing smugly watching. Ria even whispered loud enough for me to hear. Told you she wouldn't last long. I had to go down to the station, answer humiliating questions, and show documents proving my innocence. By the time I returned home, exhausted, Kavita was waiting in the hallway with a fake look of pity. You see, she said sweetly, this fight is too much for you. Why don't you just sign everything over to us and save yourself the trouble? I glared at her. Do you really think I'll give up that easily? You can send the whole police force after me, but I won't back down. Her smile dropped, and for the first time, I saw her mask crack. Later that evening, as I sat in my room, I realized what they were doing. It wasn't just about court anymore. They wanted to break me, mentally, emotionally, legally. They wanted me to look unstable so that even if I had the will, no one would believe me. But they underestimated one thing. I had proof, and if they wanted war, I'd fight smart. I called Mr. Sharma and told him about the letters I found. He was stunned. This changes everything. Keep them safe. With this, we can not only defend the will, but also show the court how she manipulated your father. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope, but that hope was short-lived. That night, I woke to the smell of smoke. My heart pounded as I rushed out of my room. The kitchen was filled with flames. Someone had left the stove on, gas leaking into the night. Ria appeared from the shadows, coughing dramatically. "Oh no, it must have been you. You're so careless." Careless. The word stung. But I knew better. This wasn't carelessness. This was another trap, an attempt to paint me as reckless, even dangerous. And as I stood there watching the firemen put out the flames, I made a silent vow. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them just how strong my father's daughter could be. If your stepfamily tried framing you with the police and even staged accidents to ruin your image, would you leave the house for safety or stay to fight them on their own ground? The fire incident had shaken me to my core, but instead of running, it only made me more determined. Kavita and Ria thought they could scare me into surrender, but I wasn't going anywhere. The next morning, as I sat with Mr. Sharma discussing the upcoming court hearing, he paused and leaned closer. "There's someone you should meet," he said quietly. An hour later, he introduced me to an elderly man named Raghu, who once worked in our household as a driver. My eyes widened. I hadn't seen him in years. "Beta," Raghu said, his voice trembling with age. "I left this house when your stepmother forced me out, but I need to tell you something. Something I saw." I held my breath. He explained how, during my father's last months, Kavita had secretly been meeting with another man late at night. Sometimes she slipped him envelopes, sometimes whispered heated conversations on the phone. My father never knew. "She was hiding things from him," Raghu said firmly. "And worse, I once overheard her telling Ria that when your father was gone, they'd finally get everything they deserved." My heart pounded, so I wasn't crazy. There was more to her plot than I had guessed. I asked Raghu why he hadn't come forward earlier. He sighed. "Fear, Beta, but when I heard how she was trying to throw you out, I couldn't stay silent anymore." I wanted to cry from relief. For weeks I'd felt alone, cornered in my own house. Now I had an ally, a witness who could stand with me in court. When I returned home that evening, I caught Ria smirking again, whispering on the phone, "Don't worry, Mom. She's breaking down. By the time we're in court, she won't have the strength to fight." But this time, instead of shrinking, I smiled to myself. They thought they were winning. They didn't know I now held something far stronger than rumors, truth, and a witness who had nothing to lose. That night, I carefully stored the letters, receipts, and now Raghu's written statement in a safe place. For the first time, I slept soundly because I knew the tide was beginning to turn. Still, a whisper of doubt lingered in my mind. Kavita was cunning, and people like her didn't go down without one final strike. The war wasn't over. It was just entering its most dangerous stage. If someone from your past came forward with secrets that could expose your enemies, would you trust them immediately or test their loyalty before relying on them? The day of the hearing arrived, and I could feel the weight of my father's legacy pressing on my shoulders. Dressed in a simple black suit, I walked into the courtroom with Mr. Sharma by my side. Every eye turned toward me, some filled with pity, others with suspicion. Across the room sat Kavita and Ria, dressed like grieving saints, their faces painted with false sorrow. Ria leaned over to whisper something to her mother, and both smirked as though they had already won. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. Kavita's lawyer wasted no time. He painted me as a manipulative daughter who had tricked her dying father into rewriting his will. His words dripped with venom. "Your Honor, this young woman exploited her father's weakness, cutting out his lawful wife and daughter." My fists clenched. It felt like being stabbed with lies all over again. Then it was our turn. Mr. Sharma rose with calm confidence. "Your Honor, this is not a case of greed. It is a case of truth. The deceased made his decision clearly, and we have proof he presented the will first, then slowly revealed the letters I had found in Kavita's study." The courtroom grew silent as the judge read my father's words out loud. "My estate must go to my blood. This is my final decision." I watched Kavita's face pale, her act cracking for the first time. But the real blow came when Mr. Sharma called Raghu to the stand. The old driver walked slowly to the witness box, his voice trembling but firm as he testified. He recounted Kavita's secret meetings, the late-night whispers, and her confession that she would take everything once my father was gone. Gasps filled the courtroom. Even the judge's stern expression softened into something resembling disapproval toward her. Kavita's lawyer tried to dismiss Raghu as a bitter ex-employee, but his sincerity was undeniable. His words carried the weight of truth. By the time court adjourned for the day, I could feel the shift. The judge wasn't ready to deliver a verdict yet, but I had turned the tide. For the first time, Kavita and Ria walked out of the courtroom looking nervous instead of smug. Outside, reporters approached, shouting questions. I didn't answer. I only glanced back at them and thought, this battle isn't over, but you're finally losing ground. That night, I placed my father's photo on my bedside table. "Papa," I whispered, "I won't let them destroy what you built. Tomorrow, I'll finish what you started." If you were in court fighting against family lies, would you rely more on emotional testimony or hard evidence to prove your case? The second day of court was set to be decisive. I arrived early, my documents and Raghu's testimony fresh in the judge's mind. I felt strong, ready. But when I entered the courtroom, something was off. Kavita and Ria weren't nervous anymore. They looked confident. Too confident. My instincts screamed danger. The session began, and Kavita's lawyer stood up with a sly smile. "Your Honor, before you pass judgment, we have new evidence to present. Evidence that reveals the true nature of the opposing party." He held up photographs. My heart nearly stopped. The pictures showed me at a party months ago, laughing, dancing, a drink in my hand. In one shot, it looked like I was being kissed by a stranger, though I remembered it was just a friendly greeting. "This," the lawyer sneered, "is the woman who claims to be responsible and deserving of her father's estate." A woman of loose character, incapable of managing such a legacy. Gasps filled the room. I could feel every eye on me, judging, doubting. My cheeks burned with shame and fury. I wanted to scream that those pictures were twisted lies, taken out of context, but before I could, Rhea stood up dramatically. I tried to support her, she said, her voice trembling with fake emotion. But she's reckless. She even endangered our home recently by leaving the stove on. We could have died. My jaw dropped. She was turning their stage fire into evidence against me. For a moment, it worked. I saw doubt flicker in the judge's eyes. The audience whispered, some shaking their heads at me. My chest tightened. They had struck at my character, my dignity, everything I stood on. It was their final, cruel betrayal, dragging my reputation into the mud just to win. But then I remembered my father's letters, his words about me being his blood, his choice. I lifted my chin. When it was our turn to respond, mister, Sharma rose calmly. Your Honor, photographs can be twisted. Rumors can be fabricated, but truth cannot be erased. He presented financial records showing Kavita's suspicious transfers, receipts hidden in her study. Then, he reminded the court of Raghu's testimony. This is not about the daughter's character. It is about the deceased's will. And his will was clear. The judge listened carefully, not reacting, but I sensed the balance shifting again. Still, I knew Kavita wasn't done. She would try one last desperate move before the verdict, and I had to be ready for it. If your enemies tried to destroy your reputation with lies in front of everyone, would you defend yourself emotionally, or stay calm and let the truth speak for itself? The third and final day of court arrived. My nerves were raw, but my resolve was stronger than ever. This was the day everything would be decided, whether I lost everything or whether my father's legacy remained safe with me. Kavita and Rhea entered with their usual arrogance, but I noticed the cracks, dark circles under their eyes, whispers exchanged with their lawyer. They were desperate, even if they tried to hide it. The judge called the session to order. Both sides gave their closing arguments. Kavita's lawyer repeated the lies about me, painting me as unworthy, reckless, manipulative. I sat still, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. Then it was Mr. Sharma's turn. He stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. Your Honor, this case is not about rumors or fabricated stories. It is about the truth of a man's last wishes. The deceased was clear. He wanted his estate to go to his blood, his daughter. Everything else is noise, distraction, and deception. He handed the judge the letters once more, my father's handwriting declaring me as his rightful heir. He presented the receipts of Kavita's suspicious withdrawals. Finally, he reminded the court of Raghu's testimony, how Kavita had plotted even before my father's death. The courtroom was silent as the judge reviewed the evidence. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear. Then, finally, the judge spoke. The will is valid. The estate belongs solely to the deceased's biological daughter. Furthermore, this court finds reason to investigate Mrs. Kavita's financial dealings during the deceased's final days. It was over. A wave of relief crashed over me. I almost collapsed into tears, but instead, I stood tall. Across the room, Kavita's face twisted in fury. Rhea gasped, clutching her mother's arm as though their world had just shattered. The judge banged the gavel. Court adjourned. I walked out of the courtroom, sunlight spilling over me like a blessing. For the first time since my father's death, I felt peace. Later that evening, I placed a garland of fresh flowers on my father's portrait. Papa, I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. I kept my promise. They tried everything, but they couldn't take what you left me. Your legacy is safe. As I looked into his smiling photograph, I realized something deeper. This fight wasn't just about money or property. It was about proving my worth, standing up against betrayal, and refusing to be silenced. And I had won, not just for me, but for him. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.